Commander Elias Hunter had seen many planets in his lifetime, but Vera 7 was different. Its skies glowed with two suns, casting golden streaks across jagged mountains and endless forests. The air shimmered with energy he couldn't explain, and the ground itself seemed alive under his boots. Humanity had sent many expeditions to unknown worlds, but none like this, home to the theAliens, a warrior race known across the galaxy for their unmatched strength, discipline, and unyielding pride. Elias's ship landed with a low hum, and the ramp lowered. He felt the weight of history pressing on him, the first human to step onto Vera 7 with a mission of peace. As he walked through the camp, alien soldiers moved with grace and precision. Their armor gleamed like liquid metal, reflecting sunlight in colors Elias had no names for. He tried not to stare, but one figure caught his attention immediately. She was standing alone on a high platform, scanning the horizon with eyes sharp as daggers. Lieutenant Kayla. Even through her helmet, Elias could sense her strength. Every movement she made spoke of confidence, skill, and authority. Humans had advanced technology, but Kayla's presence was something else, something raw, something almost untouchable. When she finally turned toward him, their eyes met. Elias felt a strange pull, not of attraction at first, but of curiosity. Here was someone who had survived countless battles, who had never needed anyone's help, and yet for reasons he could not understand, he felt drawn to her. Human. Her voice was calm but firm. Do you understand the consequences of standing in our territory? Elias straightened, feeling the weight of both her gaze and the unspoken challenge in her tone. I do, he said slowly, but I am here as a friend, not a threat. She studied him for a long moment, and he noticed something flicker in her eyes. Curiosity, maybe even respect? Elias could not be sure. But it was enough to make her lower her weapon slightly. The first few days were tense. Elias learned the theAliens' customs were strict, their rules unbreakable. One mistake could mean dishonor, or worse. Yet he also saw glimpses of their humanity. A small smile exchanged between soldiers, a whispered joke in their alien language, a pause to watch the twin suns set. Kayla never smiled in those early days, but her eyes softened when she thought no one was looking. One evening, Elias noticed her removing her helmet after a long day of training. Her face bore scars, faint but telling, along her jaw and neck. Each scar told a story of battles fought, of victories earned, and of pain endured. For the first time, Elias realized this mission was not only about diplomacy or survival. It was about understanding life beyond his own species. Understanding what courage and resilience could look like in forms entirely unfamiliar to him. As he approached, Kayla said nothing. She didn't need to. Elias could see her tension ease just slightly, and that small gesture was enough for him to feel a connection forming. He felt a protective instinct he had never experienced before. And it wasn't about fear or control, it was about respect, about honor. That night, under the glow of Vera 7's twin moons, Elias sat outside his tent and watched her silhouette against the alien sky. He realized that strength and vulnerability could coexist. Kayla's strength was visible in every move, every breath, every glance. But her vulnerability, quiet and hidden beneath her armor and discipline, was what made her truly remarkable. In that moment, Elias understood something essential. Humanity's power was not in its weapons, its technology, or its speed. It was in connection, in seeing another being, alien or human, and respecting what made them strong and what made them fragile. He vowed quietly to himself that whatever came next on Vera 7, he would honor that strength, protect that vulnerability, and perhaps one day earn her trust entirely. Little did he know, that trust would soon be tested in ways he could never imagine, not by diplomacy, but by the raw, unforgiving nature of war and the quiet, unexpected moments that revealed what it truly meant to be human. The morning light poured over Vera 7 like molten gold. Elias woke to the sounds of the camp stirring, metallic clinks of armor, footsteps on stone, and distant calls in the theAlien language that felt musical yet commanding. Today he would train with them, and most importantly with Kayla. The thought made his heart beat faster, though he tried to hide it. Humans had strength, but theAliens were something entirely different. Their movements were poetry, precise, controlled, deadly. Kayla stood waiting on the training field, her armor reflecting the morning sun. She didn't speak at first, only watched him approach, assessing him silently, Elias straightened his posture, attempting to mirror her calm confidence, though every fiber of his body told him she was far beyond anything he had faced. She finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Human, you must learn control before strength. Without control, your power is useless and dangerous." The training began with basic drills. Elias tried to mimic her movements, but he stumbled often. Kayla's eyes narrowed and he felt a flicker of frustration. Yet she didn't laugh or scold. Instead, she moved beside him, adjusting his stance, guiding his arms, gently correcting his grip. Her touch was brief, professional, yet there was a strange warmth in it, a subtle reassurance that he was not being judged harshly, only guided. Hours passed, sweat running down his brow. Elias's muscles ached, his lungs burned, but he persisted. Kayla pushed him and he pushed back, not out of stubbornness, but because he refused to fail her. With every movement, he felt himself learning not just their fighting style, but their discipline, their honor, and their unspoken respect for life. Then came the armor drill. Vairalians wore suits of layered metal that were both weapon and shield, and Elias had to learn to remove and replace pieces correctly, without causing harm. Kayla stood beside him, observing as he carefully lifted a segment of her armor from her shoulder. The moment his fingers brushed her hip, she tensed slightly. "Slow down," she said softly, a rare vulnerability threading her words. "It's very sensitive there, human." Elias froze for a heartbeat, startled, not by the words but by the trust in her tone. He realized that beneath the armor, beneath the warrior exterior, she allowed him a glimpse of something deeply personal. He adjusted his hands, careful, precise, honoring that trust. Kayla didn't flinch further. She let him continue, but he felt the weight of responsibility heavier than any weapon he had wielded. For the first time, Elias understood the subtle ways in which strength and vulnerability intertwined. Kayla was a warrior, yes, but she was also someone capable of trust, someone capable of letting another being into her world. He had trained with humans and aliens alike, but never had he felt such a profound connection in something as simple as lifting armor. Days turned into weeks. Training became a rhythm, a shared language between them. Elias learned to anticipate Kayla's movements, to mirror her stance, and to respect the spaces she allowed him. Their bond grew silently, unspoken but palpable, a thread of trust that connected human to alien, soldier to soldier. Yet Elias knew that trust could be fragile. Vera 7 was a world of harsh realities, where danger lurked beyond every ridge and peace was temporary. He could feel the tension in Kayla's every glance, the readiness to defend herself against threats no human might survive. But he also saw glimpses of her curiosity, subtle smiles when she thought he wasn't looking, and the way her eyes softened when he succeeded in something she taught him. By the end of the day, Elias sat outside the camp, exhausted but alive with emotion. He realized that training with Kayla was about more than combat. It was about connection, about understanding a life so different yet strikingly similar in its essence. Humanity's strength wasn't in its technology, its speed, or even its courage alone. It was in moments like this where respect and care could build bridges across the stars, where a human could earn the trust of a warrior who had never needed anyone. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in colors no human eyes had names for, Elias watched Kayla stand tall, her silhouette a blend of grace and power. He knew the days ahead would test them both in ways he could not yet imagine. But for the first time he felt hope that even on a world so different humanity could shine, not by conquering, but by touching hearts. The peace of Vera 7 was fragile. Its beauty belied danger that could strike without warning. Elias had grown comfortable in the camp, learning the Vairalians' ways, understanding Kayla's rhythm and strength. Yet that evening, as twin moons rose over the jagged mountains, an uneasy silence fell across the training grounds. The soldiers stiffened, weapons at the ready. Elias felt it in his bones, something was coming. Suddenly, a shrill alarm tore through the camp. Raiders from a neighboring system had breached the perimeter. Explosions rocked the tents, throwing dirt and metal into the air. Screams filled the night as chaos erupted. Elias grabbed his weapon, instincts sharpening like a blade. He saw Kayla ahead, moving with deadly precision, her armor glinting in the moonlight. She fought with a ferocity that both terrified and inspired him. He ran beside her, trying to keep pace. Humans were strong, but against Vairalians. He had learned their movements, their techniques, but now he saw them in full force. the deadly combination of discipline, reflex, and raw power. Yet Elias discovered something unexpected. Humans had a unique edge. He was slower, yes, but more unpredictable. He could improvise in ways the Vairalians had not trained for. In moments, he found himself saving a soldier from a crushing blow, deflecting a weapon in a way that Kayla could not anticipate. The battle intensified. Raiders had flamethrowers, bladed weapons, and strange energy rifles. Kayla moved like liquid steel, cutting through attackers, but Elias noticed a shadow cross her face. A hit she hadn't expected. A heavy beam struck her side and she staggered. Panic surged in Elias's chest. He pushed through fear, rushing to her side. "Kayla!" he shouted, grabbing her before she fell. She looked at him, pain etched on her face, yet she managed a small nod, trust radiating from her eyes. Elias tore her behind cover, shielding her from the firestorm. Her armor had taken a hit, and under the dim moonlight he saw the vulnerability that armor usually concealed. Carefully, he began removing damaged segments to treat the wounds. Each movement had to be precise. One wrong touch could hurt her. When his fingers brushed her hip, Kayla tensed and he froze. Then in her quiet, steady voice, she said, "Slowly, human. Very sensitive there." Elias's heart thumped, not in fear, but in awe of her trust. Even in the midst of chaos, she allowed him to help her, allowed him into her space. It was a bond forged not in comfort, but in survival, in respect and in shared humanity. Minutes felt like hours. Around them, the raiders pressed on, but Elias's focus never wavered. He treated each wound with care, his hands steady despite the panic around them. Kayla gritted her teeth, enduring, but she did not pull away. Elias realized that her strength was not only in combat, but in her willingness to trust even a human. Finally, the raiders retreated, overwhelmed by the Vairalians' organized counterattack and Elias's unpredictable interventions. Silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of fires and the groans of the wounded. Elias leaned back, exhausted, and looked at Kayla. She stood slowly, supported by his hands, her eyes meeting his. There was no need for words. She acknowledged his courage, his care, and perhaps even the connection forming between them. For the first time, Elias understood the full weight of being human among warriors from another world. Strength mattered, yes, but it was empathy, trust, and the courage to act with care in the face of danger that set them apart. Kayla's trust was a gift, rare and precious, and he vowed silently to honor it, no matter what the future held. As the twin moons reflected off the smoldering camp, Elias realized that Vera 7 was testing more than their bodies. It was testing their hearts. Humanity had survived not because of superior technology or raw power, but because humans had the ability to connect, to feel, to protect, even when the odds seemed impossible. And tonight, Elias had proven that, even to an alien warrior like Kayla, humanity's courage could shine brighter than any weapon. The battle had ended, but its echoes lingered. Smoke curled into the twin moons above, and the scent of scorched earth filled the air. Elias sat beside Kayla in the quiet aftermath, her armor dented and scorched, her breathing heavy but steady. Around them, other soldiers tended to the wounded, but for a moment it felt as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. Kayla leaned slightly on him, an unusual sight for the proud warrior. Elias could feel the tension in her body, the way she fought to appear strong even when exhausted. Her armor, which normally made her seem untouchable, now revealed glimpses of vulnerability, scratches, bruises, and faint cuts. He treated each injury carefully, his hands steady and gentle, knowing that this trust she had given him was fragile and sacred. Slowly, Kayla whispered again, her voice soft and low. Her words echoed the caution she had shown during training, but now they carried something deeper, trust and perhaps a quiet acknowledgement of reliance. Elias adjusted his hands, careful not to hurt her. Every touch was a promise, every movement a silent vow. He would not fail her. It amazed Elias how someone so strong could be so human beneath the armor. Kayla had fought countless battles, survived countless dangers, and yet here she was, allowing herself to lean on him, to accept care from another species entirely. It was a lesson in courage he had never expected to learn. True strength was not just in fighting, it was in allowing oneself to be vulnerable when trust demanded it. As he cleaned and patched her wounds, he noticed the faintest tremor in her fingers. Her eyes, sharp and commanding during battle, softened when they met his. There was no embarrassment, no shame, only honesty. Elias realized then that this was the moment that mattered more than any fight. This was the moment that defined connection, that showed the power of empathy across species, the true meaning of humanity's reach beyond Earth. I didn't think anyone could be trusted like this, Kayla said quietly, her voice almost a whisper, especially not a human. She gave a small, tired smile, one that flickered and disappeared as quickly as it came. Elias shook his head gently, smiling back. You're stronger than you realize. You survived the attack. You trusted me when you didn't have to. That's what makes you remarkable. Kayla's gaze lingered on him for a moment. There were no words for the respect, admiration, and fragile trust passing between them. Elias felt it in the silence. The bond forming, unspoken but powerful, a bridge of understanding between two beings from entirely different worlds. Humans had the gift of empathy, the ability to see vulnerability and honor it, and right now Kayla had allowed him to see hers. Time seemed to stretch in the quiet. The fires burned low. Shadows danced across the field and the stars reflected in Kayla's eyes. Elias couldn't help but marvel at the paradox she embodied. An alien warrior, fierce and deadly, yet capable of moments so tender that they resonated deeply with him. He felt a surge of emotion, not of desire, but of awe and gratitude. Humanity had the ability to touch lives, to create trust, to inspire connection even in the harshest of worlds. You're human, Kayla said softly, almost to herself. You think differently. You fight differently. You care differently. Elias nodded, understanding fully what she meant. It wasn't strength or skill alone that saved lives. It was compassion, awareness, and the courage to act when it mattered most. Elias helped Kayla to her feet, steadying her as she tested her wounds. Though she was strong, she allowed him to support her for a moment, and it was a silent acknowledgement of trust, of understanding, and of shared courage. He realized then that the bond formed in battle, nurtured by empathy, would endure far beyond the campfires of Vera 7. As the night deepened, Elias and Kayla stood together under the twin moons, a warrior and a human, different yet connected. He knew this moment, this fragile, quiet trust was more valuable than any victory in battle. Humanity's power, he understood, was not just in the weapons they wielded, but in the hearts they touched, and Kayla had allowed him to touch hers. The battle was over, but the air still trembled with its echoes. Smoke lingered over the scorched fields, and the faint smell of burnt metal hung in the wind. The camp was quiet now, though the soldiers moved carefully among the debris, tending to the wounded and repairing what had been damaged. Elias walked slowly, feeling exhaustion press on him, yet there was a strange calm in the aftermath. Kayla sat on a broken wall, her armor dented and scarred, yet she moved with a grace that made her seem almost untouchable, despite the injury she had taken. Elias approached her cautiously, giving her space, but she didn't flinch. Her eyes met his, and in that gaze there was a quiet acknowledgement, a recognition that, despite everything, he had been there, that he had helped, that he had not faltered. He knelt beside her, checking the remaining damage to her armor. His hands moved carefully, respecting the trust she had given him during the battle. Every touch, every adjustment was deliberate and precise. Kayla's breathing was steady now, but Elias could feel the tension in her muscles, the readiness that never fully left a warrior's body. You handled yourself well, Kayla said softly, her voice low, almost tired. There was no arrogance in her tone, only honesty. Even with your differences, you kept up. You didn't just fight, you protected. That's rare for humans. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. Praise from Kayla was not something given lightly. It carried weight, respect, and acknowledgement beyond words. He smiled gently. I didn't do it for praise, he said. I did it because I had to. Because you mattered. Because every life mattered. He realized then that this was what made humanity remarkable, the ability to act not just out of instinct or self-preservation, but out of care, empathy, and understanding. Kayla's eyes softened slightly, and for a moment the armor that made her seem so distant melted away. Elias felt a connection forming, quiet but profound, one that did not need words. In the midst of alien warriors and interstellar battles, two beings from entirely different worlds could understand each other through actions, through trust and through shared experiences of fear and survival. The sun began to rise, casting soft light over the scarred landscape. Soldiers moved to repair tents, organize supplies, and clean the field. Elias helped Kayla to her feet, supporting her as they walked through the camp. Each step was careful, deliberate, a quiet dance of trust and understanding. She didn't pull away. Instead, she allowed him to guide her, a gesture that spoke volumes about the bond forming between them. "You have a way of seeing things differently, human," Kayla said quietly. "Most of my kind focus on power, on skill, on victory. But you notice the people, the moments, the small choices. That matters." Elias nodded, understanding fully. It was not just the battles that defined them. It was how they faced the aftermath, how they honored lives, how they connected even when it was difficult. For a moment, they paused together on a hill overlooking the camp. The twin moons still lingered in the fading night sky, a reminder of the strange beauty and danger of Vera 7. Elias realized that this calm after the storm was more valuable than any victory in battle. It was a moment of reflection, of understanding, and of recognizing the humanity within both themselves and each other. Kayla finally smiled, a small, genuine smile that flickered and lingered longer than he expected. "You are remarkable human," she said. It was not a compliment born of flattery, but of truth, respect, and acknowledgement. Elias felt a swell of pride, not for himself, but for what humans could achieve, not through weapons or strength alone, but through empathy, care, and courage. As the camp slowly returned to life, Elias and Kayla stood side by side watching the dawn. Humanity had survived another challenge not by conquering, but by understanding, by trusting, and by connecting. And in that quiet moment he realized that perhaps the most extraordinary battles were not fought with weapons, but with the heart. The days after the battle were quiet, but heavy with unspoken feelings. Elias and Kayla continued training, but now their interactions were different. Each touch, each movement carried weight. Trust had been forged in fire, and it ran deeper than either of them had anticipated. Elias noticed how Kayla's movements softened when he was near, how her sharp gaze occasionally lingered on him with a hint of curiosity that wasn't there before. One afternoon, as the suns hung high in the sky, Elias helped Kayla remove her armor after training. The plates were heavy, intricate, designed to protect every inch of a Vairalian warrior. He worked slowly, carefully lifting each segment. When his hand brushed her hip, Kayla tensed and gave the familiar warning. "Slow down. It's very sensitive there, human." Elias froze, not out of fear but out of awe. The trust in her voice was remarkable. Here was a warrior, fierce and proud, allowing him to touch a part of her she rarely showed to anyone. He adjusted his hands, moving carefully, honoring that trust. It was not about desire, it was about respect, connection, and understanding. Kayla's eyes softened as he worked, and for a brief moment she allowed herself to relax completely. They sat together afterward, the armor laid aside, their silence comfortable rather than awkward. Elias realized that connection was not always spoken. Sometimes it was in the shared moments of care, in the way a hand steadied another, in the gentle acknowledgement of vulnerability. Humanity had a power that transcended weapons and skill. It was empathy, the courage to care, and the ability to honor another being's trust. Kayla spoke softly, almost to herself. "You see things differently, human. Most of my kind see strength only in the body and skill. But you see the soul. You notice what matters beyond fighting." Elias nodded, understanding fully. His species had learned that power alone was meaningless if it could not protect, connect, and inspire. And now, on Vera 7, he was learning that others could recognize and value that same quality. Days passed. Training became more than drills in combat. It became lessons in understanding each other. Elias learned to anticipate Kayla's subtle cues, to move in ways that complemented her strength without intruding on her space. Kayla, in turn, began to relax around him, allowing herself small moments of humor, small smiles that lit her alien features in ways he had not seen before. One evening, Elias and Kayla walked along a cliff overlooking the valleys below. The twin moons reflected off the rivers winding through the land. Kayla's voice was quiet but thoughtful. "Your people. You do not only fight with your hands, you fight with your mind, your heart, and your choices. That is rare in the universe." Elias smiled, humbled. "It's what makes us human," he replied. "We can be strong, yes, but we can also care even when it's hard. That is our strength." Kayla nodded, her eyes reflecting both the moons and something deeper, a growing respect, a connection that went beyond species. She had trusted him in battle, but now that trust was blossoming into understanding, and in that understanding Elias realized something extraordinary. Humans could bridge worlds, not by domination, but by empathy and care. The days blended into nights, and the bond between them grew quietly but powerfully. Elias felt it in every glance, every touch, and every shared moment. Humanity's strength was not in conquering or controlling. It was in reaching out, understanding, and connecting. Kayla had given him her trust, and he honored it with every action, every careful gesture. As they returned to the camp, Elias looked at Kayla and felt a sense of certainty he had never experienced before. He understood that their bond, forged through battle and nurtured through care, was something that could survive anything. Humanity had proven itself not through weapons or skill alone, but through the heart, the ability to understand, protect, and inspire connection even across the stars. And Kayla, fierce and proud, had shown that even the strongest warriors could recognize and embrace that power. Together, human and theAlien, they had discovered that the true victories of the universe were not measured in battles won, but in trust earned, bonds formed, and hearts touched. The time to leave Vera 7 had arrived. Elias stood on the landing platform looking out over the alien landscape one last time. The camp below buzzed with activity as the theAliens prepared for the arrival of other diplomats and traders. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting long silver shadows across the plains. Elias felt a strange mix of pride, sadness, and hope. He had come as a visitor, a diplomat, but he was leaving with something far greater, a deep understanding of trust, courage, and the strength of humanity. Kayla approached silently, her armor polished and repaired, though the faint scars from the battle still remained, marking the events they had endured together. She stopped before him, her eyes meeting his with the same intensity he had felt since their first encounter. There was no need for words yet, for both of them knew what this moment represented. It was a farewell, but also a promise of remembrance, of trust, and of mutual respect. "You have changed how we see humans," Kayla said quietly. Her voice was soft but carried the weight of truth. "Not all your kind would have acted as you did. Most fight for glory or for power. But you fight with heart. You protect even when it is difficult. You care even when it could cost you." Elias felt a lump in his throat, humbled by her words. Recognition from a theAlien warrior, fierce and proud, was more meaningful than any medal or honor he could ever receive. "I only did what any human would hope to do," he said simply. "We can't always be the strongest, but we can be the ones who choose to act with care. That is our power." Kayla studied him, her gaze softening. For a long moment, silence passed between them, filled not with words, but with understanding. They had faced danger together, shared moments of trust, and seen each other at their most vulnerable. That bond could never be erased, no matter the distance or the time that would come between them. Kayla extended her hand, not as a warrior to a soldier, but as one being to another. In her palm she placed a small shard of her armor. It gleamed with the light of the twin moons, a symbol of trust, of battles fought, and of the bond that had formed between human and theAlien. "For your people," she said softly, "so they remember that humans are more than what we imagined. You can touch hearts even across worlds." Elias took the shard carefully, feeling the weight of the gesture. It was not just metal. It was a lesson, a story, and a legacy. He bowed slightly in acknowledgement of honor and gratitude. "I will carry it with pride," he said. "Not just for me, but for humanity. We will not forget what you have taught us." As the ship's engines hummed and the ramp began to rise, Elias glanced at Kayla one last time. She stood tall, fierce as ever, yet there was a quiet pride in her eyes. In that look he saw understanding, respect, and the recognition of humanity's potential, a potential that went beyond technology, beyond weapons, beyond conquest. Humanity could shine because it could care, connect, and inspire even in the darkest moments. The ship lifted off, and Vera 7 receded beneath them, the twin moons fading into the distance. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, not of victory but of purpose. Humanity had made a mark not by force but by heart. And Kayla, fierce, proud, and unyielding, had shown him that even the strongest warriors could recognize that power. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Elias knew that this was only the beginning, Across the galaxy, humanity could touch lives, form bonds, and shine in ways no weapon or technology could match. And somewhere far across the stars, Kayla watched, remembering the human who had trusted her, cared for her, and shown that even in a universe of war and power, humanity could be a force of hope, courage, and heart. And that, Elias realized, was the greatest victory of all.